For Your Eyes Only by J. Cole. For Your Eyes Only is a message from one of J. Cole's friends, who is dead now, to their daughter Nina in order to teach them a lesson and make sure that they don't follow the same tragic path that Cole's friend went down. He tells his daughter about the struggles of being brought up in a poor city and touches on things like police brutality and a corrupt justice system that has skewed the underserved, the African American population. The first three verses are told from the perspective of the friend, while the last is an added narrative from the perspective of J. Cole as his own message to Nina. Cole's selection of words or diction in this piece is very particular, and it helps us to create an image in our head of what was really going on in his mind. For example, Cole says, Older, I loved acting like they was above maintaining a timesheet. Love was picked instead of any other affectionate words because of the strength that love has. Cole's friend looked up to these people, and they were a huge part of his life, which is different than just being friends with someone since you don't really use your friends as role models. You keep the people that you love close to your heart, and Cole is saying that the people that his friend loved were people that, at the time, had a timesheet purely because they had a job, and despite everyone wanting to escape their current situation, they acted like they were above him. Another example of powerful diction is in the line, Was it the trigger happy crackers that badges give clout? Crackers was chosen because of its negative connotation and the fact that hearing it used so aggressively makes you uncomfortable. Cole uses this discomfort in order to send the message that police brutality is a huge issue and the discomfort that the cops bring to his neighborhood parallels the discomfort you get from hearing cracker used so aggressively. Although written last year, J. Cole still makes allusions to the Harlem Renaissance and its themes during the song. The first reference is when he says, It seems my dreams faded for far too long, the consequence is deadly. When he says my dreams faded for far too long, it alludes to the famous Harlem poet Langston Hughes in his poem Harlem when he says, A dream deferred. He references this dream again, but this time as a hope, when Cole says, I've seen far too many hopes rot, which Langston refers to the dream as like rotten meat. In the Harlem Renaissance, the dream was referred to as something much different than it is now. During the time of the Renaissance, African Americans were allowed much more than they were before in the past, being able to perform and finally show their culture and art. In today's times, the dream refers to the ability to escape the trap or the idea that people are stuck in circumstances because of how they were brought up or the situation they are in. In many inner cities, that is the trap. They are unable to leave due to the fact that drugs are trafficked everywhere and it is very unsafe for them to stay in there. However, they get sucked into this idea that the drugs are. Cole uses imagery in order to paint a picture that his friend's life, despite having a daughter, was gruesome and was a tragic story to tell. J. Cole says in verse 2, But daddy had dreams once, my eyes had a gleam once. Innocence disappeared by the age of 8 years, my pops shot up, drug related, mama addicted, so granny raised me in the projects where thugs was hanging, blood was staining the concrete. The image painted here is violent and tells us a lot about his neighborhood. It shows that as a child, like everyone else, he had aspirations and wanted to be something. But once he turned 8, things changed for the worse, and his family fell apart because of drugs. His father was murdered because of drugs, his mother was addicted, so he had to be raised by his grandmother, but in a horrible neighborhood where there was so much violence that blood stained the concrete as it would stain your clothes. Similar to the time of the Harlem Renaissance, African Americans live in horrible conditions, being forced to live in areas basically there for black Americans. This development of inner cities led to the violence and inability for African Americans to develop and be educated the way they should be. The inability for them to move up in the world will continue to create an unsafe environment for anyone living in these areas, but they can't leave because of the fact that they're trapped. Drugs have become a huge part of the inner city culture and is the reason why J. Cole, throughout the entire song, has many different motifs and themes, and they're usually metaphors for something else. An example of a symbol in the song is the trap. Cole explains his friend's trap when he says, Took me 2 felonies to see the trap the stupid system set for me. The trap is that when he was younger, he made these mistakes, around 13 years old, and that is not a good enough reason to put him behind bars and make him unable to succeed or escape his situation.
Another example is when he says, "Life goes in cycles. Maybe you'll date just like me. I hope not." And then later in verse 3, he says, "And the cyclical nature of doing time continues." The cycle motif has nothing to do with the cell cycle or the water cycle, but it is actually the cycle of mass incarceration, or that more and more people are being put in jails, which is a major theme. Cole references directly when he says, "I dedicate these words to you and all the other children affected by mass incarceration in this nation that sent your pop to prison when he needed education." J. Cole provides one answer to mass incarceration, which is to educate people that are young and need guidance when they make poor decisions instead of forcing everyone into prison, which leads everyone to not having strong role models or parental figures. Nobody has the answer to mass incarceration, but it is time to solve it before we dig ourselves into a deeper hole. Another major theme is the idea of a role model, or the lack thereof of a role model in Cole's friend's life. For example, Cole says, "And now I fear it's too late for me to ever be the one that set examples that was never set for me." Cole's friend wants to be a role model for her daughter despite never having a role model himself, but now that he is dead, he won't have that opportunity. Since this is a rap song, J. Cole does use solid rhythm and complex patterns in order to convey his message. However, some of the best usage of sounds comes in verse 1 when Cole says, "If the pressure gets too much for me to take and I break." This usage of consonants is meant to imitate the staccato ache sound of something that is actually breaking. Even the chorus is something else. The chorus is repetitive, saying, "For your eyes, do you understand me?" in reference to how a mentor or a teacher would repeat instructions to a child to make sure they fully understand something, since mentoring is such an important theme in the song.
Thank you for listening, and I really hope you listen to this song as I think is one of the greatest songs J. Cole has ever written.